the Equality Commission for Northern Ireland is asking the High Court for clarification on how a recent Supreme Court judgment on the definition of a person's sex is applied here. It relates to a ruling earlier this year when the Supreme Court concluded that man and woman in the Equality Act 2010 refers to biological sex. Mal O'Hara is the leader of the Green Party in Northern Ireland. Good morning to you, Mal.
Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning. And the director of campaigns for the organisation Sex Matters, Fiona McAnena. Good morning, Fiona.
Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning. Good morning. So where are we at here, Mal? Set this out for us and help me understand why the Equality Commission is asking the High Court for this clarification.
Well, I think the premise is essentially, Stephen, that our legislation in relation to equality is different from the rest of the UK. So the judgment for women in Scotland was based on the Equality Act 2010, which applies in Great Britain, so England, Scotland and Wales, but doesn't apply in Northern Ireland. We have a different framework in relation to equality. And of course, then the secondary element of that is that we have the Windsor framework in terms of Brexit, and Article 2 specifically talks about no diminution of rights in Northern Ireland. So it's more complex. It's not straight transferable. The Equality Act doesn't apply in Northern Ireland, upon which the Supreme Court ruling was made. So therefore, the Equality Commission is doing its duty by seeking legal clarity.
What should the definition of a man or a woman be, in your view, Fiona?
Well, this is about sex discrimination law, and Northern Ireland does have the sex discrimination order, and that's still in place, and that's what the Equality Act in the UK was based on. The whole thing goes back to the mid-70s. And back then, we knew that a man was an adult human male and a woman was an adult human female, and I don't think that's changed. So I think that, the whole question of the Supreme Court case in the UK is a bit of a red herring here, because what the Equality Commission of Northern Ireland really has to do is just be crystal clear on the question you just asked me. And when you have single-sex spaces, for example, or services for men or women, who does that apply to? And the answer is it applies to adult human males and females. We all know our own sex. So I think that they are being overly cautious on this, but I trust that they will get to the common sense answer that everybody else knows and understands.
Well, the common sense answer, Mal, for you, how would you define a man?
Well, I think it's an inclusive definition, Stephen, and I think people like to pretend that this is some sort of gotcha question about definition. And, the women's rights sector movement in Northern Ireland are quite clear that they're trans-inclusive here. And that's the definition that I would adopt, and that includes people who've transitioned. And I'd make an important point, Stephen, that, we have the sex discrimination order from the 70s and welcome equality legislation. But since then, we've had numerous court cases across Europe which are clear about protecting the rights of trans people in their acquired gender. So that supersedes and moves it on. And we have to obey European equality legislation.
In your view, Mal, can a man get pregnant?
Well, Stephen, I think people, born in one body and they clearly identify as another, and they can transition. And I think that leads into another challenging question, which is about the ridiculous waiting times that people in Northern Ireland, but the UK as a whole, are going through to transition. The block in services. But
if someone said to you that man over there is pregnant, would that sound strange to you or not?
But language moves on, Stephen, and I think people
So has it moved on in your head?
Understand. Yes, and I think broadly for more and more people, they're moving on with that language. They understand that people may be in the wrong body, they're waiting to transition, and that language is nuanced. So I think in terms of the Supreme Court, the judgment on the Equality Act 2010 does not apply to Northern Ireland, and the Equality Commission are doing the right thing by seeking legal clarity.
Well, I think most people listening to that will be completely astonished to hear a politician saying that language has changed and man and woman doesn't mean anything anymore.
I didn't say that.
Most of the time, people are free to do whatever they want, dress how they like, call themselves what they like, but no one's been born in the wrong body. We've all just got the one body and we have to make the best of it. And there are times when we simply have to deal with that reality. There are not many times when we have to insist that men and women are separated, but there are some times, and most often it's for the safety and the dignity of women and girls.
Okay.
But also for men too. You know, most men don't want women walking in to a men's toilet, for example. So I think that, you know, protecting people from discrimination and harassment because they're unusual or they present in an unusual way is quite right. But there are times when the reality of that body has to apply.
Listen, thank you very much, Mal. Thank you, Fiona, for talking to us today.